Welcome back to another edition of the Five Star Podcast of Wrestling. Sean Meyers coming to you on a Thursday evening, joined by my co-host Justin Lowery. Justin, welcome back for another week in the world of professional wrestling. We're on the heels of wrapping up a pay-per-view, and we are also less than 24 hours away from the start of another, in a sense, pay-per-view. The calendar never ends with the WWE year, does it?
Nope, it's 24/7 pretty much.
So what I want to do is we're going to get into Crown Jewel, and of course that is a topic in its own with all the controversy, as well as the matches. We're not going to do match by match like we typically do with the traditional pay-per-view, but we'll discuss that, as well as some of the notable things from Raw and Smackdown, anything else that might be on our mind. But I want to start with what was, I think, a pretty darn good pay-per-view in Evolution. This past Sunday, first ever women's pay-per-view exclusively for WWE. And you know what? We criticized a lot of the build of the actual card. There's no doubt it delivered with the matches that were set up. Could it have been a lot better had they gone a different route? I think for sure. But I have no complaints. I think the show vastly exceeded my expectations. What were your thoughts on the show Sunday overall?
I was very happy with it. I thought it was very entertaining. I thought the women went out there and worked their butts off, and I at the end of the day, I could probably say that was one of the best produced main roster shows of the year for sure.
There's word coming out, and some of this could be sort of people just speculating, but the indication is that it was produced and run different than a typical main roster pay-per-view. It's sort of like the NXT people were behind it, and you could see right from the get-go the lighting was different. And I know that's a very small thing, but that's something that when you have a billion-dollar company like WWE and so many very talented professionals outside of the wrestlers and commentators, the people behind the scenes, those little touches make a difference. And it did feel more like an NXT-style takeover than it did a regular WWE pay-per-view, right?
Yes, well, I think that they also said reasoning was because of they needed to do a show or the next day. There was reasoning why certain people weren't there, the skeleton crews or whatever. Blah blah.
Well,
blah.
the men had their own show. Now that was a house show, obviously, but I believe it was a dual-branded men's only type of deal earlier that day.
Yeah, so I guess most of the main roster people were there, and they used the NXT people for this, which. Maybe that explains. I mean, I noticed right away the lighting and everything was different. And I'm like, oh, well, this is cool. It gave it a more, it's a different feeling, which I guess for an all-woman show, I expected a different feel, but I was kind of shocked that it wasn't your typical standard WWE, production.
The length of the matches, you really brought up the point. How are they going to fill this time? It ended up going a little less than 3.5. I think it was about 3 hours and 20 minutes or so, which is still a lot. I mean, that's a long night for wrestling fans, even avid wrestling fans. This time they didn't have any pre-show matches, so you could really start watching just at 7 if you didn't care about the red carpet stuff. But it seemed like every single match got adequate time. Maybe some even went a little bit longer than it needed to. But it's had that NXT-like feel where it was a smaller card where they could really focus on the matches, even though, again, we didn't think maybe some of them were the best booked. That's refreshing as well to see these women. They weren't crunched for time whatsoever.
No, actually, I was, earlier in the day, I was wondering, I was assuming it was going to be 4 hours because every pay-per-view now is 4 hours. But when I went on, I noticed they had the run time from 7 to 10:30. And I went, okay, well, that makes, some sense there because I didn't know how they were going to do 4 hours. And if you would have told me beforehand 3.5, I would have been like, how? But there was a lack of build, which was a shame. But in the end, the show was really great. They overcame that. Just imagine if there was actually a really good build towards it.
And I keep thinking of the matches that could have been. But I think we can both agree this is probably not the last time we will see a women's only pay-per-view. Especially if they stick around with this commitment to Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah, I'm going to assume it's probably going to be a yearly event. I don't know if they'll go, every 6 months, but I think at least it's going to be a yearly event.
I want to take a look at our predictions, and I will say I think a few matches were pretty obvious, but There were some matches that were a little bit harder to call, and it sort of is reflective here. Here's what you and I both anticipated going in. We disagreed on the SmackDown Women's title. I said Becky Lynch. You had Charlotte. We both, I think, knew Ronda Rousey was going to win that match. There's no doubt. I thought the Trish Stratus and Lita match was pretty obvious as well. And then we differed on the six-woman as well as the Battle Royal, although with the Battle Royal, it's really tough to pick. We also had different picks for the Mae Young Classic final, although we both agreed and both were wrong with the NXT Women's Championship. And here's how it turned out. So, as you can see, I got 4 picks right, so I won 4 and 3. Justin, you were batting under 500 at 3 and 4. I will give you credit. You got the 6-woman tag right that I missed. And, the Mae Young Classic one, it doesn't really matter too much. But I know you were wrong, but I think you're still happy with the outcome of the SmackDown Women's title, right?
Oh, I was ecstatic. I only picked Charlotte because I just feel like we've talked here many a times. I don't pick against Charlotte when it comes to WWE. It's like the Roman factor. I'm happy, ecstatic that Becky won. I was through the roof. I always felt like Charlotte's Vince's woman. That's the main one, and I just felt like, when in doubt, always go with Charlotte. But couldn't be more thrilled that Becky, won. I mean, for me, that was a match of the night that should have been the main event for more than 1 or 2 or 3 reasons. But trust me, I was happy to be wrong.
So I saw everyone talks about Dave Meltzer and his rating system, and really it causes more angst and controversy than it really should. He gave it, I believe, today 4.75 stars, which actually I believe is the highest rated WWE umbrella women's match ever. So that includes NXT. My personal opinion, I thought Sasha Banks and Bayley from TakeOver in Brooklyn was a decent amount better than this match. The few things that I didn't like, one, there was a couple botches where it wasn't terrible, but enough that, in my estimation, you don't get a 5-star match if you mess up a few times. The thing that really killed me was, for a last woman standing, the official and Charlotte seemed like they didn't understand what was going on. I thought twice Charlotte literally only got to her knees and the official stopped. And at one point, the official also kicked a chair literally into the hands of Becky Lynch. Nitpicking, I understand. I don't think it's the best women's match I've seen, but I think it's probably the best one of 2018 that I've seen.
Yeah. Are you sure about the Sasha Bayley match? I thought that got like a 5 stars.
Not from him. No, he gave it 4.5.
Okay. But this I agree with you. I believe that one was better than this one. But this was definitely by far, I think, the best women's match easily of 2018.
And it wasn't a pure classic wrestling match. It sort of had the Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton factor. Maybe not as gruesome, but it was just like, what aren't they going to do tonight to each other?
And you brought up the stand. Like, I think I texted you during the match, going, she's not even to her feet. She's on her knees, and he's stopping the count. And I didn't understand that. Like in boxing, the 10 count, you got to get up on your feet. And then the part where Becky was covering her with all the stuff, shouldn't he have been, counting from the very beginning?
Yeah.
Not count until, she stopped doing it. And she was, actually covered for, a minute.
Yeah.
And then the 2 times, there was twice when he stopped counting, when she was, on her knee, was the exact same pose where he counted 10 on her. There was no difference.
Right, that's the other thing, that it finished with her struggling to try to get up. And
that would be my pet peeve of the match, and I don't know if that's really on any of the Becky or Charlotte, or more so the ref, and how he handled that. I think I text you. We text each other back and forth. The ending was no different to Charlotte than she was getting up when she was covered up or earlier in the match. It was the exact same spot where I'm like, oh man, she got up from that, and he goes 10. And I'm like, huh? Like that?
Yeah.
I was just surprised.
That said, I think months from now, and particularly years from now, we're not going to think about that. But in the short term, I think that's enough to say it's not the best women's match I've ever seen. It still is what's going to be remembered from this show, is that match, and the fact that that was the best that they had in their 3-month feud by far, I think. The cool part is Becky Lynch is moving on, and we're going to touch on that a little bit with what she said on Smackdown, but it looks pretty clear that her next opponent will be at Survivor Series when they do Raw versus SmackDown, which means she's going against Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey defeated Nikki Bella. Not a surprise to me, Justin, exactly what I expected the match to be. It was a serviceable match. There wasn't a lot of surprises. They gave the impression Nikki could win. I never thought that. It wasn't bad, though. I mean, it was what Ronda and Nikki probably were capable of doing.
Yeah. I mean, to me, there was no doubt about it. That was almost like a no-brainer. If any match was a no-brainer, it was that one.
Right.
It was what it was. I think it was a typical Ronda match that we've come to, see from her. I mean, Nikki held her own, which I thought she would. I mean, she's not the worst female ever. She's, decent. And, it was what it was. It was, I had no problem with it, but after the Charlotte, Becky match, to me, no matter what they did, it wasn't going to live up to what I just saw. So I was kind of like, whatever.
Right. Before we touch on some of the other matches, if you are a casual fan, I kind of wonder, did Evolution do it for you? This is the type of match that I think Vince and the rest of creative, they, in their head, think this is going to appeal to casual fans that know the name Ronda Rousey, that watch reality TV, and they know Nikki Bella from Dancing with the Stars or Total Divas or whatever. I think in their head, this appealed to more than the hardcore wrestling fans. That's the only real justification as to why I think they went with this particular match.
Well, I'm guessing it's, if you ask somebody who's maybe a casual fan or didn't really watch wrestling, can you name 2 women wrestlers?
Like, you could ask your wife. She would know Nikki Bella, right?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, she would actually know a lot because she'd watch Total Divas and stuff, and she's at least familiar enough with the wrestlers that name probably 7 or 8, actually. But I think if I asked my sister, who does not watch wrestling, she knows who Ronda Rousey is, and she probably knows who Nikki Bella is. And she knows Nikki Bella, though, as John Cena's girlfriend. Not really Nikki Bella, the wrestler, but that's John Cena's girlfriend. And, better or worse, I mean, that's probably not what you want to be known for. But I think the casual person who doesn't even watch wrestling, that might just watch their reality shows, that's what they know her as. And I think that's why they went with it.
Yeah. Trish, Lita, they come back. Now, this would have been a lot cooler if they weren't at the Royal Rumble. I mean, again, we saw them 7, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, whatever it was. But this is at least, a tag team match. They got to show off their, all their stuff. I thought both of them looked decent. I thought Trish looked a little better. The disappointment to me, really, it's unavoidable. Alexa Bliss was not able to be in this match. And that's sad because from storyline purposes, she was really the key cog in this. And Mickie James sort of was playing second fiddle. Well, they go from Alexa Bliss to Alicia Fox, who was just there to basically sell and take bumps, which she does very well. They really couldn't salvage the lack of, significance or storyline purpose when Alexa went out. That said, the fans still loved it, right? I mean, it's the throwback vintage type of thing, and your Hall of Famers looked good in the process. So pretty basic there, but they got plenty of time to wrestle.
Oh, yeah, actually, that was probably the right choice for the opener, too. Bliss, I wish she would have been in it. Fox, I mean, she's been around forever. People forget how long she's been with the company. I don't view her, I kind of still view her as one of those diva wrestlers from that era.
Right, yeah. No, I agree with that.
I will say she bumps very well. She's willing to, be dragged around, thrown around. She's not the best. She, can botch up, with the rest of them, but who else were you going to put in that situation? I mean, it was an unfortunate event that she wasn't cleared. There was really no one else to put in there. It was the best they could have done. And, to piggyback off of Trish and Lita, I guess word is breaking that they kind of signed a short-term deal and people expect them to be around through WrestleMania.
That's the first I've heard that. I don't know that I really like that. Again, I think they still have a lot to offer, but I think when you're on a regular basis and you're past your prime, you could get exposed. But to me, it's like we don't like when part-time has-beens, in a sense, come back on the men's side because it takes away from the opportunities for the younger wrestlers that are there every week? Could you see the same thing happening here?
People won't complain because I think it's different. I know what you mean.
If let's say a Ruby Riott or an Ember Moon get pushed to the back burner because of this, is that a good thing long term?
No, but I'll give it a couple of weeks. I don't think, some of those old wrestlers that we talk about, those guys come back with a lot of egos. I don't know if Trish and Lita have them. They might be coming back because they want to work with some of these great female wrestlers that they didn't really get a chance to in their day.
And put them over in the long run.
And put them over in the end. Like, who took the pin in that match was Mickey. Even though Alicia Fox took it, no one's going to be like, you're burying Alicia Fox. That was a match where they didn't bury an up-and-comer. If those two go against the Riot Squad, maybe it gets a chance to get the Riot Squad, a little rub. Or even if they're still going with Bliss, it gives Bliss, even though I don't think Bliss needs the rub because I think she's well established, but still, you give her a little extra rub. And if it's true, because I was shocked that they were wrestling on Raw. When I saw that, I went, oh, well, that's a surprise. And I think it was Tuesday morning when I read that report that rumor is that they actually signed a short-term deal and don't, expect them to be around through WrestleMania season.
Anything else that you wanted to touch on with Evolution? I didn't like the idea of Nia Jax winning the Battle Royal. To me, that's the wrong choice, and I think the fans there agreed with me. Everyone wanted Ember Moon or maybe Asuka. I don't think people wanted to.
I picked Asuka, but I thought Ember was a good choice. I didn't really think, Nia. I texted you, right away that I think that she got the pick because of Roman's, cancer, and she's a cousin, and her and Tamina did the Roman in the middle of the ring, and Tamina got like a showcase. Like, I forgot about her. She shows up once a year, gets hurt, and she was shown to be very dominant and strong.
And they continued that on Raw, which man, when they did that on Raw, it just.
And to me, and I'm not, I try to keep it separate from Roman, but whenever something tragedy happens, I remember when Eddie passed, they gave the belt to Ray.
Right.
It always seems like, okay, here's a family member, now let's push them. And I just thought that was a good opportunity to get somebody like an Ember Moon or like an Asuka just because she needs, I think, a little reestablishment. A push. Nia Jax does nothing for me. And, do you want to see her and Ronda Rousey again? I don't.
We're going to at some point, it seems. Let's kind of transition to Raw and just a few things that stood out. We know it's now going to be Strowman and Lesnar wrestling for the Universal title, the vacated title. With only 1 week really to promote this, do you care? Even if it wasn't at Crown Jewel, if it was on a traditional pay-per-view this weekend, would you care that the title's on the line?
No, I don't. Well, we've talked. Well, Lesnar does not. I don't care about Lesnar anymore. And Strowman, if you asked me 6 months ago, I probably would have been hyped. But they kind of ruined them. They didn't ruin them, but they took away what was like special at the moment about them. The fan reaction, that time and place. They kind of squashed him a little bit in favor of Roman, and then they turned him heel for Roman. And now, since Roman's out, they turn him back face again.
And I think it's hard to get behind a person that goes face, heel, face in a span of 2 or 3 months. And I think Nia Jax sort of mirrors that same type of thing, doesn't she?
Well, yeah, and I think if you're a hardcore fan, you know the reasoning, and you're like, If you're a casual fan that really goes by the storylines, like I'm going to cheer who you tell me to cheer, boo who you like. Just 2 weeks ago, you had me booing this guy. If I'm a 10-year-old kid now, I'm supposed to cheer him. And it's so quick. It's not even like a slow build-up, and then he gets his match. I expect him to win, and then maybe him and Drew have a feud for the title, because that seems to maybe where they're kind of foreshadowing, which I think that would be fun. But Strowman as a champion right now doesn't do much for me.
Something that was sort of under the radar on Raw, but to me was a little bizarre and maybe will be significant in weeks to months to come. There's a new tag team on Raw, Justin. I don't know that we talked about this at all before we came on. Lucha House Party. And I said, I have always loved 205 Live. The problem with me and 205 Live is that I'm so far behind and I'm OCD with wanting to watch in order that basically I haven't watched in several months. But it's 3 very talented guys. that, have a niche on 205 Live. I think that's the right show for them. Now, seemingly, because Raw needs some tag teams, we know that the Shield's no more. It seems like McIntyre and Ziggler are probably done competing on the tag team side. They bring up Lucha House Party, which is a three-man group, but they're going to serve basically as a tag team. Kalisto, Grand Metalik, and Lince Dorado. So they bring up the cruiserweights. One, that's weird because the cruiserweights have always been kept separate from the Raw and SmackDown regular competitors. And two, these guys get a victory at the expense of the Revival. It seems just like this tag team division is kind of a mess right now. And they have plenty of talent, but I don't really ever expect that they're going to use that talent correctly and make it a real tag team division, which is the complete opposite of SmackDown, which has a killer tag team division.
The tag team division usually is a mess. I mean, nothing surprises me there. I mean, Rollins and Ambrose win the title, and then seconds later Ambrose turns.
And they haven't clarified what they're going to do with that yet.
Something I read is that, I mean, it's not set in stone, but I guess apparently the rumor is they're just going to vacate the titles and they'll have a tag team tournament for them. And that's one of the reasons that Kalisto and company were called up, is that they need enough tag teams.
That's exactly what I thought. They don't even literally have enough tag teams to do that. If you're doing like an eight-team tournament,
you probably need 8 tag teams. Yeah, probably need 8 tag teams.
You're going to have to dig up Slater and Rhino, who haven't been seen. The B team will come. I think the only thing the B team's been doing is commercials with Alexa Bliss.
Yeah.
It just, even if they do have that tournament, it just seems like it's not going to matter. But with these guys coming up, do you anticipate, with Lio Rush also being on Raw, that maybe some of these 205 Live guys are going to fill roles on Raw or SmackDown in the future, or do you think it'll eventually just fizzle out?
No, I don't. I think they knew Lashley couldn't talk on the mic. They needed a mouthpiece for him, and they found one. And,
same with Drake Maverick.
Right. I think it was just a need. That wasn't the plan. If Lashley would have been okay on the mic, you never would have saw Rush up here. And then when it comes, they just don't have enough tag teams. And they just look like, okay, is there anyone in 205 Live or NXT we can call up? And they were like, oh, okay, these guys, these are the best. I mean, it's just for a lack of not having enough tag teams. And once you have the tournament, you can go back to having 2 tag teams shown, for a period of 2 or 3 months for a feud, and then they rotate in and out.
Are you digging Lio Rush and his stick?
I find it annoying, so that tells me that it's working.
And so annoying, but not making you change the channel.
Right, but annoying,
because change the channel is what they don't want, obviously.
Right, annoying, oh man, I'm entertained enough to listen to him, but it's annoying to me, which is good because it's actual good heel heat, not this guy sucks, I'm turning the top.
When he calls him the big man all the time, I always crack up at that.
Lashley, and that laugh of his, I want to punch him in the face, which that means he's doing his job.
It's interesting we talk about Lashley. He, whatever. He's not really doing a whole lot, but all of a sudden he becomes part of this incredible tournament to determine the best in the world. We've heard that literally 100 times. Yeah, I think someone else had that.
You're all U.S. citizens for this World Cup. They're
well,
all US
don't think about that, okay?
And Mysterio is of Mexican descent, but they're all U.S. citizens. It would have been better off calling it the King of the Ring, because that's exactly what it is.
Right.
Eight guys wrestling 3 matches in one night. You should have just called it the King of the Ring.
They could have. So Lashley gets inserted because they need an explanation as to why John Cena's not going to be there, because in real life John Cena says, I'm not going. Didn't want to be part of that show for, pretty obvious reasons, and he has the ability to say, I'm not doing it. So they replace him with Lashley. That's fine. But on SmackDown, they went a completely different route because Daniel Bryan was the other competitor who wasn't going to go, and instead of just making up an excuse for why he couldn't be there and have him replaced sort of seamlessly, they actually had the WWE title match on SmackDown between AJ and Daniel Bryan. I think these guys got 25 minutes. It was basically the first quarter of the show was their match. It was a good one, Justin. I mean, this is probably pay-per-view caliber match right here for the title for these guys on free TV. Now it sort of came due to dubious circumstances. What did you think of the decision to have it there on SmackDown? That way Daniel Bryan already gets his title match. And what did you think of the match overall?
I love the match. My problem with, what else were they going to do? If he was not going to go, they couldn't not have the match. So I thought they handled it the best way they could. The only thing that sucks about it is that I guess they couldn't promote it because they wanted to, act like he was still going, or maybe hoping he would change his mind at the last minute. That match needed promoted. Like, hey, next week on SmackDown, this dream match, blah, blah, blah. Because then, not knowing it was going to happen and to have it start the show and not even make
right,
it.
Yeah, I thought that was sort of weird too.
Time to get word out, tune in, you got to watch this. So maybe somebody who would have tuned in didn't tune in and missed it. But that's my only thing is, WCW got destroyed for having top A matches on Nitro without any promotion. Well, WWE just did that, and they've probably known for weeks. Apparently, they've known for weeks that Daniel Bryan was not going.
Well, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, and we didn't know for sure that you thought maybe he would change his mind, but they realized this was a possibility. So Joe fills his spot, Samoa Joe, who had been off. And the thing I hate about Samoa Joe is when he's not challenging for the title, he just is completely off TV. Find a way to keep him on, even if he is banged up.
That's lazy writing by
right. Even if he's banged up, he's so good on the mic that you can find a role for him. But my question is Daniel Bryan ever going to see a championship match in the foreseeable future after this?
No. And I read that the match went as it was planned to go at Crown Jewel. Like, nothing was changed. AJ was always supposed to win by submission, blah, 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 blah. And it was like a one-off. Daniel Bryan, it's not going to be a feud that continues. What you saw was Joe taking over, and that's it. I was actually hoping when I saw that, and down the line, we could see a triple threat match with those two.
Well, can they really go back to Joe and AJ long-term again, or is it just Crown Jewel and then Joe's in the rearview mirror?
Maybe he's back. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because they already did like 3 months of those guys.
Right, and I would assume, though, that if AJ's going to win, AJ wins, and he faces the WWE champion at Survivor Series.
Which we've already seen him and Lesnar last year, so, you kind of almost have to do.
Which is almost going to be like the same type of match, big, little. So then you really don't need another feud for AJ until TLC in December.
Randy Orton?
You can give it, a little time off. I would like to see a triple threat. I could see maybe, those three, but I can see The Miz jumping in. I think that would be the next logical challenger, right, would be The Miz, because we've seen him and Joe enough. If Bryan's a one-off, I think it has to be Miz. He's the next heel in line, I would assume.
A few more minutes here to discuss SmackDown and then Crown Jewel before we wrap this one up. I know you're happy Becky Lynch is still champion. I think most people are. And it seems as though her and Charlotte are done. Charlotte's now moving on to maybe having confidence issues as far as the SmackDown women's tag team match for Survivor Series. Becky Lynch is full force ahead with Ronda Rousey. One, how do you book a match like that without ruining one of them? And two, is Becky Lynch legitimately maybe the second biggest woman in this company right now?
Fan reaction-wise, absolutely. I don't know if she's the second most widely known, but I think to the wrestling fan, yes, absolutely. I think this match with Ronda is the right match, but at the wrong time. And what I mean by that is, they're not going to book Ronda to lose, and Becky should not lose yet. Her momentum is sky high. Keep riding it. Don't derail it. Don't slow it down. Keep going with it. And I'm afraid a match with Ronda, she's going to lose. They're never going to let Becky.
Well, could they do something where Ronda's next challenger, maybe Nia Jax, comes in and cleans house? Something like that.
I hope we get a crappy finish. I'll be okay in this situation. Or some type of DQ finish. Don't let Becky tap out. Nobody wants it. Don't do it. She's riding high. Don't have Becky tap out in favor of Ronda Rousey.
And conversely, Becky Lynch is probably not going to win by a roll-up or something like that at this point to get one.
Because that's not going to help Ronda, and they're trying to make her strong. So it has to be some type of DQ finish or a double count-out where they're both just beating the hell out of each other. Something. But I don't want to see either one lose.
Real quick, Justin, Crown Jewel is tomorrow. There's big news that came out this week. It had been rumored before. Hulk Hogan is going to be there. So they are just really adding on with reasons for people to hate this show. And the video, the photo I had up there initially had Roman Reigns and some other guys that aren't going to be there now. So we know Roman's out, obviously due to his illness. Cena's out. Daniel Bryan's out. They have all these legends. They have what should be an absolute massive match with Shawn Michaels coming out of retirement, but it doesn't, in my estimation, feel like a must-see type of thing. Overall, it seems like this is bordering on disaster. Is there any way that the company salvages this Crown Jewel debacle?
Oh, I think it'll be. I think it's not going to hurt them. I mean, the show will go on as is.
Well, I heard the stocks have really suffered because they decided to go through with the show.
Yeah, but I think I saw yesterday. I think they went above $70 again. I think they were, they recovered a little bit. WWE, it's unstoppable. I mean, people are complaining, and yet I really don't think it's going to have too much of an effect on their bottom line. People aren't canceling the network. Now, I would assume when they get the results back, there ain't going to be many numbers towards the show. Maybe a lot of people aren't watching, or maybe a lot of people are. A lot of people love to complain. Especially
maybe people outside of the U.S. would be more likely to watch this. I think with the Americans, this is kind of...
fans we know love to complain online, and yet they still watch. They'll say they're going to cancel, say they're going to boycott, and yet they're always there.
Well, this has more legs than something like not liking how they book Roman Reigns. Like, this is like you're literally going to a country that could be an enemy of America right now.
I think they pretty much are. In my opinion, they are. I don't want to get into politics, but I think most people will agree that they are. A lot of terrorists come from there. What happened to the journalist over there? It's not good. They are taking blood money. They are doing propaganda for the government over there.
And it seems like if they're going to do it through this, they're going to do it for the next 9+ years through it, no matter what.
Away that dollar. And I do think it's hilarious that Hulk Hogan's finally coming back. A lot of people despise him, and he's coming back for an event like this. I mean, it's very fitting. A sleazy guy like that probably deserves to come back at this type of event.
If you're a wrestler, are you in any way hesitant to go over there? I'm
sure I would be, but not everyone's Daniel Bryan or John Cena and can say straight up no. A lot of guys feel like if they say no, maybe they'll never get that position again.
Right.
Do you think if AJ Styles said, no, I'm not going over there to defend the title, that he's ever going to hold it again? We all know there's that backstage heat, and they would never publicly say, oh, we did this to him because he wouldn't go over there. But I think we know enough about the McMahons that they're petty enough there'll be consequences for that. And a lot of guys feel like they probably can't do it, and maybe a lot of guys can't pass up on the money. I am disappointed in Shawn Michaels. I never wanted him to come out of retirement anyway. He always said he wouldn't be that guy.
Right.
He was happy to be that guy that never did. And he comes out for this event. It's the match itself coming out for is depressing, and the event now is more depressing. That he kind of sold his soul for this, and it just sucks.
Right. Final 2 questions. One, you're not going to be watching live. You'll be at work. If you were theoretically off, would you watch it, and will you watch it after the fact?
No. I didn't watch last year's. I didn't watch the Australia show that took place, last month or 2 months ago. There's enough wrestling for me to watch. It's hard I'm not going to go out of my way to watch a show that already, especially that happened, because I can leave work, look on my phone, and know exactly what happened. So. And
to that point, do you anticipate any significant development? Obviously, we're going to get a champion. We know that, it seems. But other than that, is this going to be a show that people should tune into to see something happen?
No, I haven't been proven wrong otherwise. It seems like all the events are the same. And on a personal level, I would never, especially now, I wouldn't watch because I don't want them to get that number, even though it's just one watch knowing that I was okay and I watched it. Like, you're not getting it from me. Braun, I guess I would assume Braun's going to win. Everything else would kind of be status quo. And I don't need to see it. And I don't want to see Shawn. I don't have a want to see Shawn Michaels wrestle, so that's not even enough for me to tune in. And I'm sure that this isn't going to be the only match he wrestles.
Well,
so I know I'm also going to have an opportunity to see him in a singles match down the line.
All right, Justin, that's going to do it for this week. Another edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. You can check us out on Twitter, 5-Star Pod Wrestle. You can certainly subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all our old videos. That's going to do it for another week. I want to thank co-host Justin Lowery. This is Sean Meyers signing off. You've been watching the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. We'll catch you again next week.